So in this situation, in this video, we're going to be talking about the situation in the Middle East getting even worse. We're talking more escalations from a certain country, as well as more potential war crimes. So this from Luis Goodall saying UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk says the humanitarian situation in Gaza is at its darkest moment yet and warns of potential crimes against humanity, saying, quote, unimaginably, the situation is getting worse day by day, worse by the day. The Israeli government policies and practices in northern Gaza risk emptying the area of all Palestinians. We are facing what could amount to atrocity crimes, including potentially extending to crimes against humanity, end quote. And, they're talking about, starving areas of northern Gaza. They also talked about, gated communities, which people are calling code for concentration camps, which, again, it's just... We are entering a very dark timeline for Palestine, a very dark timeline for it. You always think it can't get much worse, and it does. You've got Israel striking more targets in Iran, and apparently even Saudi Arabia have condemned Israel's airstrike on Iran. And when you think about it, these are two regional rivals here, two very big regional rivals who are vying for power. One side saying, I think the third party went a bit too far. It's nuts. And you got Matthew Wright interviewing, so it's a former peace negotiator, but he's a former Israeli peace negotiator, and talking about how we can see a close this chapter of tit for tat between Israel and Iran, but it was Israel that started this. So, letting them have the last word, I don't think the Iranians are going to. Started with Iran accusing Israel of killing generals in Syrian airstrike. So Iran's Revolutionary Guard say 7 officers have been killed in an Israeli airstrike on the Iranian consulate building in Syria's capital of Damascus. Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahidi, a senior commander of the elite Quds force, and Brigadier General Mohammad Hadi Haji Rahimi, his deputy, were named among the dead. Iran and Syria's governments condemned the attack, which destroyed a building next to the Iranian embassy. So this is where the major fight between Iran and Israel started, with the murder of their senior officials. So this idea that that they're going to let Israel have the last word in, especially when they started it with Iran, I can't imagine it happening. But here we have our Prime Minister talking about why Iran should not respond.
I want to address Israel's strikes on military targets in Iran. This is a live situation, and we are obviously monitoring it closely alongside our partners. I am clear that Israel has the right to defend itself against Iranian aggression.
This isn't Iranian aggression, this is Israeli aggression. That's the difference. You're talking to the person who got punched in the face and saying, don't respond, you're the aggressor. If you respond now, you're the problem.
I'm equally clear that we need to avoid further regional escalation. And
surely you should talk to the people escalating it then.
Urge all sides to show restraint. Iran should not respond. We will continue to work with allies to...
Sorry, you got punched in the face. Don't do anything. Crazy behaviour. With a situation where Israel bombed the oxygen station at the Kamal Adwan hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza, killing a number of children. Couldn't report an oxygen station. Was that Hamas as well? It's just just endless, just crime after crime here. You have UNIFIL, who are operating in Lebanon, saying on October 22nd, peacekeepers on duty at a permanent observation post near I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's a place in Lebanon. Were observing IDF soldiers conducting house clearing operations nearby. Upon realizing they were being observed, the IDF soldiers fired at the post. The duty guards withdrew to avoid being shot. So they are attacking people who are just observing them. Why would you attack people observing you? We have more stories about them, the IDF shooting cameras and lighting. Why would you do that if you've got nothing to hide? You've got more where journalists are... this clip's self-explanatory, really.
Well, this airstrike took place overnight, hitting a compound where there was a row of chalets, and the first images that we've seen this morning show one of the chalets just reduced to a scorched rubble of its remains. Some of the eyewitness journalists who were in the neighbouring chalets talk about the ceilings falling on them and hearing the sound of fighter jets overhead. Those 3 journalists were from 2 different Lebanese TV stations, and staying in that compound there were around 7 different media organizations who were based there to report on the fighting happening in the south of the country between Israel's ground forces that are pushing into that area and the fighting with Hezbollah. The eyewitness journalist who's spoken about their experience said the journalists there thought they believed this area to be safe because whenever they would make a movement to go out and report or return back to that compound, they would inform the local UN peacekeeping troops there, who they understood would then inform all relevant parties. Now, this morning, the Lebanese Minister of Information has called the airstrike a war crime. We haven't heard...
We have a situation where you have journalists who have told the UN, and the UN in turn would have told the Israelis. So I think there's fireworks going off in October. You hate to see it. And then that's, I think, made them more of a target. There was a situation where you had a journalist, a Palestinian journalist, taking off their, their blue vest, the one that shows that they are a journalist, saying this has made them more of a target. A conflict where you have the most amount of journalists and media people killed. They're obviously being targeted on purpose. It's crazy that no one's really addressing this that much. This is something the White House should be addressed. It should be brought up on all the time.
Please.
They've labelled the IDF, Israel has labelled certain journalists as terrorists, but you have organisations that protect journalists saying no, that's not true.
I'm deeply disturbed by this labelling. Unfortunately, it's a part of a pattern that we've seen from Israel in which they label journalists as terrorists. We've seen this not just in this current war, but in preceding conflicts in which they've killed journalists and then subsequently alleged those individuals with terrorists, never producing any real credible evidence. And we're concerned in this case that this is an attempt, if you like, to excuse any potential future attack on these 6 journalists. It makes them extremely vulnerable, and they were already extremely vulnerable.
So again, that's clear what Israel are doing here. They're setting the groundwork, and whenever the Americans are questioned on this, they will say, there's got to be, we expect Israel to carry out an investigation to this. Let's not also forget, Israel have killed their own hostages when those hostages were trying to escape or were released from capture. Israel murdered 3 of their own civilians, their own citizens, because they thought they were Hamas, even though they were unarmed.
We've looked at the documents. They don't appear to be credible.
This is not the first time. We are not the only one saying that the Israelis are fabricating documents during this war. We're witnessing many standpoints from different organizations and from different human organizations. They
essentially, Israel's argument is this.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
That's it. That's their source. Many Labour MPs are apparently concerned that the pressure being applied to Israel by the UK government and its Western allies is not having the desired effect, because that's not going to do it. You have to basically sanction them. You have to make them an international pariah until they stop. That's the only way to really stop this. I saw some analysis here about, as long as the US is arming Israel, this will not be coming to an end, and also the fact that Netanyahu might be waiting for the end of the American elections, because if Trump wins, then he can essentially annex more land and no one will do anything about it. Not saying Kamala Harris will be a tremendous amount better, but I think in Netanyahu's mind he will be able to annex less land, even though the fact that Israel's occupied certain areas like the Golan Heights, has built more settlements, and the Americans have always been very quiet on it, so I don't think it'll make much difference anyways. I don't think there's much trust from Arab organizations or Arab countries for Israel to hold up to their side of the bargain when they broke the Abraham Accords very quickly. I found it ironic that you've got this guy, Alistair Campbell, calling out the Washington Post for being silenced by their owner, Jeff Bezos. But this is the same guy who lied us into a war. So, I don't know if he's got a spine, but, he expects other people to, which is sad. And then you've got here, more about the UK's kind of involvement in the Iraq war. The Israeli invasion of Gaza, with the RAF has surveillance tape of Gaza from the day Israel killed British aid workers but refuses to publish it. The MOD claims the tape is exempt from disclosure on security grounds, which, again, this is a Labour government here, a Labour minister in charge of the MOD who's refusing to publish this. So it's just painful how bad some of this is, and it doesn't look like a Freedom of Information Act will be of any use here, which is tragic. But again, we have British citizens who are killed in Israel, who are trying to do, some of the most important work you can do in a conflict zone, which is to try and help others. They were murdered by a so-called ally government, and yet they won't release the footage that they have of the people there, of what actually happened. It's just heartbreaking. But that's what this conflict always is. It's always heartbreak, especially for the people involved and the people who try and help. I'll try and keep you guys updated on the situation in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iran, in Israel as best I can. I'm always late to stuff, but it's always worth covering just to discuss. I think I'd be pretty bad at my job if I just shied away from talking about these kinds of stories and these kind of things, because you're in a situation where journalists are being killed. The least I can do is talk about it. So yeah, I'll do my best to keep covering this kind of stuff, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But hopefully, we get an end to this conflict soon, because I don't think Gaza's already flattened. I don't know if there's much hope for Lebanon at this rate. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.